All right. So Alice, thank you so much for joining us on the Beat Your Anxiety Summit. I know you're a wealth of information, and I'm so excited to share all of your insights and all of your knowledge with this audience. And, as I was saying, the solid audience, really particularly struggles with, being their authentic self and feeling good about who they are. And, of course, they're trying therapy and they're trying prescription drugs and they're going down all these routes. And I think now a lot of these people are asking about, like, well, the spiritual work, the holistic work, and more of like actual healing versus just slapping on more band-aids. So Alice, I'm really excited to hear more from you. Can you tell us about yourself, what you do, and what motivates you to do the work that you do?
Well, thank you, Lydia, for this wonderful opportunity to be interviewed by you and to be on this program. I myself am at this moment in time, I've had other careers. I was a real estate broker, and I'm an author. I'm the lead minister of Rays of Healing Church in the Burke branch. And I am a teacher. I'm a healer. I'm an intuitive. I do spiritual and past life readings. I talk to angels, archangels, ascended masters. I mean, the spiritual is my life. And so, but I've transitioned from other places. I started out absolutely in the 3D world. The irony to my journey was that when I was 4 years old, I looked up at the sky and I asked the question, who am I and what is my purpose? And I didn't know the answer to that question, but I knew for sure I was old and I knew what old meant. And I was only 4. So I already had a sense of something bigger than myself. And but the amazing thing too is for those 3 people have done my astrological chart, and every one of them said exactly the same thing. They said, you're a healer. And of course, I started out in the normal 3D world. I started out as a first grade teacher, and then moved on to real estate, and literally thought that I would live and die as a real estate broker. But effectively, what motivated me to switch directions is that I became very, very ill. And it was a chronic illness because I had horrendous back pain. And I became determined, Lydia, that I was going to heal myself without pills, without surgery, and with no side effects. So effectively, what is there? There's energy healing. So that kind of segued me into energy healing and gave me the opportunity to do what I do.
I got chills when you told your story, because I had the same experience when I was a kid. When I was probably like 8 or 9, I looked up at the sky and I was like, wait a minute, what is out there? I was like, what's over there? What's beyond the clouds? Like, and it was just like this, there was a sense of like raising of consciousness in that moment, right? Of like,
exactly.
There's something, there's a lot more, there's like people I need to meet. There's things that I need to do. And I know, like you said, your background is in energy work and you do Reiki, and obviously you focus a lot on meditation. And can you talk about, like, what does it mean to become like our higher self? Can you tell us like who is our higher self, and why is it essential to raise consciousness and awareness in order to heal ourselves and break bad habits and things?
And there is such a misnomer about your higher self. People think that it's somehow or other, they get the idea that this is either something outside of themselves, or this is something they have to earn, or this is that only at a certain elevated understanding will they be able to do this. The higher self, the way I understand it, is that part of you that is God, that has never left God, but also simultaneously has never left you.
Mm,
Your own consciousness is able to reach into your higher self. Every single time you go to a place of forgiveness, every single time you recall absolutely horrible memories, and you and I both deal with the clientele that have had horrible experiences.
yeah.
So as a result, their memories are horrible. And when they can go to a place and say, please help me with this. Help me. I'm powerless to, I don't feel that I have the power to, to see this in any way except the way I see it, which is like, I'd rather see those people dead than, than what they currently are. Because in some cases, your abusers might have risen to very high positions in life. And because I've had that happen, and or I've seen that happen, I should say. And so effectively, your higher self is always attached to you, always available to you, always there, ready, willing, and able to help you out. So some people would call it the Holy Spirit, which I call the voice for God. To me, they're one and the same.
Mhm.
So I hope that that gives the audience, the listeners, a little better understanding, a little better clue that this is nothing special. This is who you are, because who you are is spirit having a human experience. And
Ah.
who you are is a little piece of God. And as a little piece of God, anything is possible.
Like I'm getting so many chills just listening to you, Alice. As a hypnotist, one thing I love to tell clients is like, for those of you watching, you are not your feelings, you are not your emotions, you are not your habits, you're not even your nervous system, you're not even your brain, you're not your body. You're like you're the seat of awareness and consciousness that's experiencing, you're the observer of these things. And because of that, we get to detach our identities from, that thing that we did the other day we weren't proud of, or for how we see ourselves when we look in the mirror, or that, that donut that we regret eating now. It's, or,
Whatever.
or that moment we got angry and upset, and we get to let all that go. And you know I know you talk about like how the higher self is part of who we are. And what came to my mind is like the inner child as
Mhm.
well, like being a part of who we are. And can you talk to us about like who is the inner child? Because I know this is probably like an abstract um, phrase for a lot of this audience who is struggling with maybe reliving old wounds, and they're just maybe getting involved with abusive situations. Like, can you talk about how like the inner child and what that has to do with how we create and continue to create the things in our lives?
Absolutely. And, I'm so glad you brought up the inner child, because every single one of us, until the day we die, has an inner child.
Mhm.
And because effectively, we cannot divorce the experiences that we had as, I mean, I've had people who literally remembered being in the birth canal and
Wow.
remember coming from the darkness into the light, into this bright light. I myself had a really interesting experience when uh, I went back to the moment of my conception, and when I looked, I saw real resistance from my mother, and while they were having sex. And I asked my teacher at the time who was guiding me through this, I said, did my father rape my mother? And she said, no. but she was reluctant to have sex because my mother didn't feel like she was qualified to become a mother.
Oh, wow.
Effectively, because she lost her firstborn to pneumonia 5 years before my birth, or 4 years before my birth. The baby was born 5 years, died at 11 months, died of pneumonia, and that's another story. But anyway, the inner child is the being, that part of you, again, that absolutely lives within you, lives with you from the moment of conception to the end of your life. And in some cases, those who were lucky enough, fortunate enough to have idyllic childhoods, do they have to nurture the inner child? No, but most of us had much less than idyllic childhoods. So effectively, what we have to do is we have to acknowledge the inner child, treat the inner child, take the inner child on a date, take them out for ice cream,
I love
take them out for a walk, take them out in nature, just do something. This is so interesting, Lydia, that the first time that I did inner child work, when I built a house for my little girl, and I said, this is your home, this is where you're going to sleep. When I checked on her the next morning, where I found her asleep, under the bed, because apparently the only sense that I had is maybe she never had a bed of her own to sleep in.
Yeah.
So she was under the bed. And what did that tell me? I'm pretty sure, going again, I won't go into all these stories, but I'm pretty sure that my parents, who absolutely couldn't afford a home of their own, who lived with my father's parents, who despised my mother because he came from the wealthiest family in town, she came from the poorest. So they really wanted nothing to do with my mother. And so I'm pretty sure that I must have slept in very meager surroundings. That's the only way I can describe it and everything. But I just feel that if we can understand, again, just like our higher self is part of us, the inner child is part of us, that we, by paying a little bit of attention to that inner child, we can absolutely nourish it, nurture it, and give it what we didn't receive ourselves. Totally within our power, completely within our power.
Yeah. And I know a lot of this audience is, you can see me, right? Hope I wasn't blocking it. But a lot of this audience, recovering people pleasers and people who like are still seeking that love and that validation outside of themselves. Notice this hamster wheel that we get stuck on, and it's like I'm trying to get attention from this person, and I get frustrated, and I try to get my needs met by trying to get them through other people on the outside. And this is the route people typically take, and maybe some of you viewers are also, maybe this is resonating with you, and it's actually this work that gets to happen so that you can meet all of your needs.
Exactly. The inner child is that if you have a wounded inner child, if you have a wounded teenager, if you have a wounded adult inside of you, those wounds are going to continue to surface. They're going to come out in very inappropriate times and at inappropriate places. They're going to continue to surface. So you really have to pay attention to what is wrong. And you have to recognize that, okay, nobody did it for me. I'm going to do it for myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to treat myself. And this doesn't mean going out and spending thousands of dollars on yourself. My God, you can go to a thrift store and get 10 times the amount for the price of maybe one shirt. And walk out a whole lot happier. In fact, I know one of the congresswomen from the one from what, the Bronx or Queens, shops at a thrift store, and she makes it very, very clear that this is what she does, and she has a magnificent wardrobe. And so anyway, so many ways to help yourself, so
I
many ways to change.
I love how you pointed out that, I think when people hear like the word self-love, oh, it's like, well, let me go get my nails done. Let me go get my hair done. Let me, take myself on a vacation. And that's not what we're talking about here. For those of you watching, it's
Yeah.
this is self-care, right? Like going to take that shower, going to take that nap, get that massage, getting your nails done. This is more of self-care, self-love, right? Maybe something that is maybe to you is more of an abusive situation. Maybe love to you was in your household, maybe was, intermittent attention, or maybe neglectful, or maybe there was obviously physical abuse is something that the court systems can recognize. But what about the stuff that flies under the radar, right? The gaslighting, the emotional blackmail, and um, I'm just going down a list here, but what we're trying to get from everyone outside, and often people pleasers are the givers.
Correct.
We're over here giving, 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 and we're like, hey, when am I going to start to receive? Right?
You give to yourself first.
Yeah.
You can't give from an empty shell. You can't give what you don't have. And you give to yourself first. You put yourself first. This I stress that over and over and over to my clients, because of the fact that, like with you, I work with very wounded people. And my husband, in fact, once asked me, he said, Alice, how do you stand it listening to everybody's sob story day in and day out? And I said, because I don't lie bleeding on the floor with them. I stay in a place, not, but empathy, certainly. I empathize with them, because fortunately, and now I see it as a fortune. Then I didn't. I was married to a narcissist for 6.5 years. And 1, 2, or 3 days didn't go by where I wasn't in tears because of something hurtful or hateful that was done or said, to me. So now I see that as so useful, and because I can understand their plight.
Yeah.
And where when I was going through it, that I thought I was living in a version of hell, because I was.
Yeah.
So, and I recognize the symptoms of codependency instantly because of that experience, and can help others see that. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up that word narcissist, and I know that's a topic that's going to come up over and over again in the summit series, and already has already. But for these people who get involved with narcissists, I know one thing that you talk about a lot is people who feel like they're not good enough, or maybe they're coming from a place of shame. And like, can you talk about like, oh, and one thing I know you also talked about was like this tiptoeing that goes on, this tiptoeing around other people so you don't make waves. And I was listening to one of your talks about this. And can you talk about like, what are the consequences of just like, I don't want to rock the boat and I don't want to make waves. And, while you may be maintaining some peace, like what's actually going on here?
And honest to God, Lydia, that is so critical, because when you're going through it, you don't recognize it. And the only reason that was pointed out to me is that it was the last year of my marriage. I was already living in Virginia, and I just happened to be working in a bullpen with 6 other women and a boss who kind of sat in front of me, who would then just listen in on my conversation, listen to all of us on our conversations. And because it was personnel, we were placing people in jobs. And she looked at me one day and she said, Alice, do you know that you become a different person when your husband calls you.
Wow.
And she says, you start clenching your teeth, you start talking in a very clipped, short manner. Your body freezes up. You turn, it's like your skin goes white. And
Wow.
because I went into a fear space.
Yeah.
And so I looked at that. I was doing that constantly, wasn't even aware of it, because of the fact that they have you convinced it's your fault. It's
Mhm.
always your fault, no matter what happens. And Lydia, I'm going to say this because this comes up so often. If he hits you once, he's going to hit you again. I don't care how many times he apologizes. I don't care how many times, or she says, I'm sorry, I will do better. It was you, you just got me so angry. Whatever it is, if he hits you once or she hits you once, they're going to hit you again.
Yeah.
So the first time it happens, get out. Things are just going to deteriorate from there. And I cannot believe that how many women stay in abusive situations because they do not feel they have the wherewithal to to change their life. Fortunately, that's being recognized by society, and there are houses, there are shelters to go to, and now, but the important thing is that when you said shame, like guilt, blame, there is a scale of consciousness. Let's say it starts at 1, it goes up to 1,000. From 700 to 1,000 is where God lives. Shame, blame, guilt. You're talking about 10, 20, 30 on the scale of consciousness.
Yeah.
Those are useless emotions. Those are emotions designed, and I don't care if your parents are doing this to you, your spouse is doing this to you, your significant other is doing to you, society is doing to you, religion is doing it to you, your peer group, whatever. Those are designed to control you. That's the only purpose for them.
Yeah.
It's to control you. And we, as human beings who have free will, we despise being controlled. There is that part of us that goes into a rage, whether you understand it or not, whether you know it or not, there's a piece of you that's going to go into a rage when that control is levied on you. And pretty soon that rage is just going to erupt to the point where then the abuser becomes the murderer because they can't tolerate it. And then the the abused becomes the murderer because they can't tolerate the abuse anymore. And then they end up in jail,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but really, it's shame, blame, and guilt. Just remember that 10, 20, 30 on the scale of consciousness, way at the bottom.
Mhm.
Don't even think that those are emotions that you want to partake in.
Yeah. And also recognize, like, for those of you watching, like, you're not born, these are not innate emotions. You're not born, you don't come out of the womb feeling guilty about things, feeling ashamed of things. You're taught these things. They're installed into you by, whoever is around you growing up. And what I love is Alice is saying is, like, just throw it out, just get rid of it. Like, there's no place in your life. It does not serve you at all. This guilt, shame, regret, resentment, anger cycle. And if you are feeling, this shame, like, well, the question becomes, well, how can we start to step out of this? Like, what's missing for these people? And I know, and I really want to get your perspective on this, being really in energy work is, where would you start with someone who's like, hey, I don't like who I am. I resent, my husband or my wife. I feel like I can't speak up and I'm going to explode,
Okay. And it's so interesting because there have been times where, because I'm an energy healer and because I've studied energy for over 25 years, to, so I take my consciousness and I go into the, let's say, consciousness of the two parties involved, whether it's a significant other or whether it's a spouse, a partner. And I look and evaluate, can this relationship be saved?
Mhm.
Is there anything within the other person that tells me that there's genuine love there? And I've told people to get a divorce. I've also told people to go to counseling and get help for what it is that your difficulties are. In some case, they will come to me and have a session with me. In other cases, I never hear from them again. But then a couple years later, they'll somehow or other they'll stop by in maybe when I'm at Pathways Expo and wave hi to me, and I know that they're happy they're together. They'll you know and but in terms of what can where I what can you do with these people? The only thing that I can tell you is emotions are alive. If you try to stuff them back into yourself, yeah, you'll get away with it for a while, and
Yep.
then they're going to erupt.
Yep.
So, and sometimes they're going to erupt in the most inconvenient time. Something's going to trigger you. And I mean, you work with triggers all the time. So that it could be something so slight. It could be a word, it could be a feeling, it could be a vision, like seeing something, and it's a trigger, and it's going to trigger you, and you're going to explode
Yeah.
because you have not dealt with those emotions. You've just tried to stuff them down. You really have to work at getting them out of your body, just working on, and to me, this is a lifelong process. The beauty is, with an audience such as yours, is that there's so much available
Mhm.
for us to be helped, whether it's person to person, whether it's on the internet, whether somebody's scrolling through. I mean, eventually, I think the value that I find in the work that you and I do is that we are, because of our intense desire to be messengers for God, to be helpers of God, to be healers of God, is that we get insights so quickly is into what's wrong. I mean, I think back on some of the sessions I've had, and I thought, I couldn't have thought of that in a million years. I couldn't have come up with that answer, but yet it's there because, spirit gives it to me.
Mhm.
So anyway, Lydia, as you can see, I love this work. I just feel that I stepped into a role for myself that is perfectly suited to who I came here to be,
Yeah.
not who I was to begin with. I was horrified when my guides all told me that I was to be a teacher and a healer of God. I cried convulsively. I said, I'm not capable. And
Yeah.
here I am. And now when I think back on being so upset about it, I think, well, that's pretty quaint.
I think I can totally relate. I remember when I switched over from doing 12 years in website development over to a hypnotist. There was definitely a grieving process there. I grieved for almost a year, like not the role, but the life. The
Mm,
life of this, being a messenger for someone else
yeah, yeah,
versus for a higher self, the universe or God or whatever it is.
right.
And maybe, I love your passion, Alice. And I know there's people listening intently right now who are like, oh my gosh, like she speaks my language. So
Yeah,
if you're listening, this summit is for you, this interview series is for you, and it's all free, F-R-E-E. You would be crazy to not go get what Alice has to offer. I know her personally. I've known her for years, and her work and what she provides is just, we're talking permanent change here, like life transformational change. From Alice. And Alice, I know you have a couple free gifts for this audience. Again, you'd be crazy not to go get. So Alice, can you tell us what you have? I know you have a book called Own Your Power Day by Day. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. This is a product, and don't let the size intimidate you, because you only read 2 pages a day, because there's 365 meditations in here, all given to me by Spirit. 16 years worth of writing and editing, sometimes, letting it sit for years, letting it sit fallow until I was ready to release it. Not exactly sure why it took me that long, but it did. And but Own Your Power Day by Day. And my free gift, I'm going to offer something to everybody. The first 10 people that will sign up at the on the website, on the website below, will get a free copy. The rest who want to order it will then be notified and say that they can order it. And the price right now is $28.94, something like that, free shipping. So the price is the same whether you go to Amazon or whether you go to my website. And if you go to my website, at what's written on the bottom is I will endorse the book to you. But every single person who responds, who doesn't get the 10 free copies and doesn't want to order the book, will get a digital copy of one of the Reiki meditations that I have done. It's 45 minutes long, and it's a meditation for clearing all your chakras. And for those of you who do not know what your chakras are, then if you Google it, or if you go on one of my YouTube videos, I've got probably an explanation for every, I think I've got 150 YouTube videos out there. So if you type in chakras, that one will come up. And you can, but there's many books on chakras, and because all they are is your energy centers. There's 7 major ones. There's an 8th one that's opening up right now in the thymus and above our heads. Number 8 connects to both. And ironically, it's this color. It's aquamarine, and it's the seed of compassion. And if you stop to think how important compassion is right now for all of us, for every member of the human family. So
yeah. And I know a lot of us people pleasers, and I know as a recovering pleaser, so many times I've talked to like energy healers and psychics, and they all told me the same thing over and over and over again until I did something about it. And they kept saying, your throat chakra is blocked.
absolutely.
Your throat chakra is blocked. And now I can see it in my clients. I'm like, oh, your throat chakra is blocked. And it's, maybe, if you're watching this interview, is this resonating with you? Maybe you feel like you're like I'm so angry and I want to say something, but I can't, because I don't want to lose the connection. I don't want to make waves. I don't want to, rock the boat. And every time you do that, every time, like you said, Alice, you're stuffing your emotions down.
Yeah.
They're gonna come and knocking. They're going to come. Like it's not going to be a convenient time. Typically, it's going to be that moment, like you said, you've had that final straw.
Yeah.
And it's, I know for me, I used to act in ways that were humiliating to me now, but, I mean, I think that's a great way to start looking at this. Is like, I mean, imagine you're a fly on the wall looking at yourself as you're behaving this way. Are you proud of yourself as you look at this? And, again, this is where we get into the inner child work and working with that inner child that is screaming out for attention or love or, praise, or, to be seen and heard. And, if you struggle with this and this is speaking your language, go check out Alice's stuff. Click the link below. You like I said, you'd be crazy to pass this up. Click the link below, send an email directly to Alice with the subject line, I want my free gift. And the first 10 people will get a free copy of this book. It's free. There's no reason why you can't get started on your journey here today. And again, for everybody who reaches out to Alice at the link below, we'll get that free digital recording of an amazing Reiki meditation. I know I already want it. And this has truly been an empowering, 30 minutes. And I can't even tell you enough, Alice, how thankful I am to have you here to share these insights with the group. But thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. I could talk for hours, and I do.
You got to go to bed at some point.
All right. Well, thank you, Lydia, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.